Hi guys, Nikhil here. This is the part 6 of our Lightning Web Component series, and today's topic is conditional rendering of template in Lightning Web Component. So as you know, in each and every application we have a scenario in which we have to hide and show some part of a component or some HTML tags. So the same thing we're going to achieve today in Lightning Web Component. Let's move on to agenda. So today's agenda is what is directive, if true directive, what is if false directive, how toggle template works. After that, power of getters in Lightning Web Component, and in last, conditional rendering on an event trigger. Let's move on to our first topic. So our first topic is what is directive. So directive are special HTML attributes. So in HTML tag, if we define an attribute that has some special meaning that are directive, each programming have their own directives. So similarly in Lightning Web Components, we have many directives. In our previous videos, we use looping directive, that is for each or iterator directive. Similarly, for conditional rendering in Lightning Web Component, we have two directives. One is if true directive, second one is if false directive. Let's move on to our first directive, that is if true directive. So we use this directive to render DOM element in a template if the expression is true. So let's see first how this syntax look like. So as you know, each directive only work within the template tag. So within the template tag, if we define an attribute if colon true equal to expression, so this expression is always be a dynamic value that come from your controller. But to define this expression, we have some limitations. So let's see if the expression can be a JavaScript identifier. It means it can be in any property that you assign. Second one is the expression can be a JavaScript dot notation that access a property from an object. So if you have an object called user and that has a full name, that also a valid expression. You can't use ternary operator inside the expression, so you can't do any JavaScript expression inside this expression like ternary operator. And another one is to compute the value of expression, use a getter in a JavaScript class. That will look in our fourth topic. So these are the way we can use the expression. We should always avoid, we can't use array for picking up a value. And if the expression is true, whatever the template we are defining under this template tag will be visible. If the expression is false, the value inside this expression inside this template tag will be hidden. Let's move on to our first demo of if true. Let's go to our VS Code. As you can see, my VS Code. First, we'll create our component name template true demo. Go to your command palette, Control Shift P for Windows, and for Mac, Command Control P, or you can go from View as well, Command palette, and go to your Create Lightning Web Component. Enter, define your component name. I have given template true demo. Press Enter. Take the default path, so it will create temp component under the LWC folder for me. So the component is created with the default structure. So we'll start with a property called show text. I'll say As you know, it's a reactive property now by default. I initialize this property as false, and let's go to our template tag. And template tag, first I'll create a button. I'll go with the basic structure first, then we'll beautify it. Button, yes. These are the default classes for button given by Lightning Design System. Click me to show the text. So I have created a button with the text click me to show the text. So which text we're going to show here is H3 array to able to see the hidden text. So on click of this button, I want to hide and show this text. So we'll create our if true directive. So as you know, for if true directive, we need a template tag with if true attribute, and within this template tag, whichever element we want to hide and show, we'll put that. So we'll cut and paste our h3 tag or text inside this if true directive. So here our expression will come based on which this text will be hide and show. So on button we need to attach our handler, action handler. So we'll add our on click handler over here, and I will give this name show handler. Show handler is a method. We'll define it inside our controller. It's a function that will trigger on click of button, and on click of this will change the property to true, and we'll go and use that property to hide and show our template h3. So now if you see, we are using show text for if true. So whenever this property is true, this text will be visible. Whenever this property is false, this text will be hidden. So let me repeat it again. I'll go back to my JS. We have defined a property show text initialized with the false value. So whenever the component loads, this text will be hidden. And on click of this button, we are changing the property to true. As this property become true, our template run the expression again and it show our text. Let's push this. Before pushing this, we need to change some expose value to true, and there are some meta file changes here. Expose that to be true so that your component will be visible inside your org. After that, the target on which all pages you can expose your component. So after these changes, we'll push our code to our org. So our component is deployed to our org. Let's open our org. Again, go to command palette, click open default org. It runs the command. I'll go to my Chrome because my org is already opened. So this is the app I already built just to make sure I keep my component in one place. That's why I built this app, Salesforce Truth Fundamentals. So let's edit this page to bring in our component. So if you guys don't know how to create an app or lightning pages, you can ask me in the comments. I'll teach you in one of my videos like how to create a lightning app and how to create a lightning pages. So as we did some changes in our component meta file, that's why we are able to see our component here, template to demo. I'll drag this component to here. Yeah, we'll place our all today's demo component in the right side. I'll drag from left sidebar to the main screen. So let's save this. Go back to our main page. So our main page is ready now. This is the component that we have built. The button is there. Click me to show the test. As soon as I click, it show you the text. So let's add some styling next to it. Let's go back to our VS Code and do some styling magic over here. Again, we'll place our component inside the lightning template. Lightning part title to demo and icon name custom and custom centering. Anything you can give for the icon. I'm just giving a random number. And apart from that, I'll give some padding. For padding, for margin actually, I'll give some margin so that our component not look attached to the card. This is all Lightning Design System classes. Medium margin, and let me cut our existing code and place inside our component. Apart from that, I guess we are good. Let's push our code. Now our component is deployed successfully. Let's go to our org and refresh the page. Our card with some styling, and if I click it here, you can see the text. Let's move on to our next topic, that is if false directive. So this directive is opposite of if true directive. So we use this directive to hide or render the template or element when the expression is false. So if you have a scenario in which you have to show the text whenever the expression gives you a false result, then you can go for if false directive. This expression also hold the same way as we discussed in if true. The expression can be a JavaScript property. The expression can be a JavaScript dot notation or object. You can't use ternary operator, and to compute you can use Gator in the JavaScript class. Let's go to our VS Code and see how if false directive works. And let's create another component. give this name. uh, let's go to command palette, press enter, create lightning web component, and give you a component name. I have given template false demo. Press enter, press the default path. Component creation command is running right now. I'll close all the files. So now you can see our false demo component is ready. So for this, we're going to create a property called hide text. Initially it's false, and we'll go to our first demo and copy paste as it is the whole HTML, replace with the HTML. Because our whole logic run inside this directive, earlier we were using if true, I'll change it to if false. And in my JS, I have used hide text as a property. I'll change the expression to hide text. Apart from that, we were showing the we were using the show handler on click of button. Here we'll use hide handler. We'll define a hide handler method in our JS or controller. Apart from that, I'll change the text in my HTML. Click me to hide the text, and here I'll change the text to thanks for seeing me. And this is the false demo. I'll give some number 18, and here I'll update this class to true. So let me explain what I have done now. So we have created a property called hide text, initialized with the value false. We have created a lightning card. In card we have defined the title if false demo. Within the card we have created a div, given some margin with some inbuilt classes of lightning style system. Within this we have created a button. In button we have given a text, click me to hide the text, and attach a event handler on click. An event handler we have defined inside our controller. Whenever the button click, this method get triggered and it update the property hide text from false to true. And here we are using if false directive. Whenever the hide text property is false, it show the data. If it's true, it hides the data. So you can see here we have initialized it with the false. So it means whenever the component loads, the expression is false. As we are using if false attribute on directive, then this text by default is visible on load. As soon you click on the button, this text property become true and this text become hidden. Let's deploy these changes. Before that, just let's do the change in our meta XML file. Right click, deploy source to org. Now our component is deployed. Let's go to our org, edit the page. We'll place our next component below this if true demo. On click of edit page, we are back to our app builder. So here is our component. Just drag this component below the if true component and save the page. Let's go back. So now our page is loaded. You can see because our height text was initialized with false, and whenever your expression results false with if false directive, it show the text. On click, we are changing the property to true. It immediately hide this text. So it hide the template on click of it. Click of the button. So this is our if false demo. Let's go back to our slides. So let me show you how these things works actually, these three three bullet points that we talked about. So to understand these points, I'll navigate to playground that is given by Salesforce, but it's easy to get the result immediately instead of pushing to and fro to org. I'll show you like how we can understand these point, like when we already worked on using property, but we haven't tested with the dot notation as well as the ternary operator. Let's go back to my playground. I'll remove this child component. I don't need this. I'll copy paste my whole component as it is here. We can take any component. I'll take false demo one. I'll replace app.js with my JS file and my HTML with the HTML file. So you can see now our component is totally fine. So this hide text in our controller is a property right now. Let's convert this into a object. So result equal to false. Suppose if our property is in a format of object, then we need to use it with the dot notation. That is a valid expression in lightning web component template. So if I say within the hide text result is hide text dot result, then our component is working fine. But if you see on click nothing is happening, let's fix that as well. So if you have attended my lecture of JavaScript Lightning Web Component, JavaScript in Lightning Web Component, then you know you can't update the result directly or object directly. So if I try to do this, nothing will happen. So to update this object, we'll use a spread operator. We'll spread our property hide text, that is an object, and update the result property with value true and assign it back to hide text. Now if I click, see our component is working fine. So this is the one way we can use expression with the dot notation. The other one most common data structure is array, but in this case you can't use your array notation over here because array notation doesn't work in your template expression, so it throws an error over here. Template expression doesn't allow numeric literal. So always avoid array notation. And another point that I mentioned in my slide is to compute the value of expression, use getter in the JavaScript class that I'll show you once we'll go to the getter topic. Let's move on to our next topic, that is toggle hide and show. So as you know, toggle means flip flop. We will hide and show the text on the click of same button. So till now we have used if true and if false in a separate component. Now the both directive we're gonna use in a same component. Let's go to our VS Code and create another component with name demo template toggle demo. Let's go to our command palette, click create lightning web component, enter your component name, press enter, press enter again for the default path. So command is running right now. So now our component creation is done. Let's go and define some properties in our JS file. So I'll define a property called toggle text, initialize it to true, and in our HTML template we can copy the same structure again, any structure. So this is the same structure that we're gonna use. I'll remove this button and this thing for time being so that I can be able to explain you again most of the things. Toggle demo, it's a number 19, which is fine. So we'll create our first button. I would have used the same one, but I want to see again the creation of main logic again. So I have defined or created a button tag with the class slds button, slds button underscore brand. Click need to toggle the text. So I have defined the text within this button, and below that I'll use my if false directive. I'll use the property that I have defined in my controller, and I'll define some text within this directive so that so this tag will be hide and show on click of the button using the toggle text property. So I'll give some text to this history tag. Let's play hide and seek, and the last thing we'll add some handler to our button handler. Whenever this button gets clicked, I'll go to my JS file. I'll create this method. Whenever this button gets clicked, the property of toggle, as you know, we pick up the value with always this equal to not of this dot toggle. So if value is true on first click, not of true is false, so false value get updated in the toggle text. On the next click it's false, not of false is true. Likewise, we're going to update the toggle value to this property, and whenever the value toggles, our expression value also, like true and false, based on that our this particular text will be visible or hidden. Let's push our code and deploy to our org. We missed one thing. We forgot to add is exposed and the targets to our XML. Let's add that values to our config file of the component. Let's deploy it again. So now our component is deployed to our org. Let's go to our org, edit the page again. It will take us to our app builder. So let's see, our component is visible on the left side. Yes, here is our component. Let's drag our component to below if false demo component. Let's save. Let's go back. Now our page is ready with the component. So this is our toggle demo component. So on click, I'm showing my text. On another click, I'm hiding my text. So based on that, our toggle text properties setting true and false. So this component is also working fine. So within the same component, we are using our hide and show both together. Let's go to our slide and see on our next topic. So our next topic is power of Gator in Lightning Web Component, one of the most powerful and most useful concept or most commonly used in our component development. So usually people read about getter and setter together, but I'll go first with the getter and we'll talk about more about getter and setter when we learn component parent to child communication. There it makes more sense to understand the setter and getter better. But this getter, the only getter without setter, is very helpful. I'll show you where all we can use this getter. So first, what is getter? Getter is a function that returns a value to the template. Getter always return the value. So getter is very useful for dynamic setting the data, class name, or any calculation on the template. So if you want to set some class based on some condition, or you want to set some data based on some condition, it, you can easily achieve with the getter, and it always be dynamic. Let's see the demo of getter and understand more about the getter. Let's go to our VS Code and let's create our another component. Let's enter getter demo. Let's enter. So now our component is ready. Before starting this time, I'll add my targets and expose to my component before I forgot to my meta file or my new component configuration file. So this is our component getter demo. Let's go to our JS and create a property called title and assign a value. This is our getter power. So this is the basic text I have assigned to this particular what we call a property, and I'll bind this property to a HTML tag. So within that I'll create quickly a lightning card, card with title, get a demo, and I'll give some icon name, custom colon custom 20. We have created our card over here, and the same way we'll define some margin around this card. For margin, I'll define the class. I could have copied the same code, but I thought, okay, let me write this time because sometimes some people get confused. So let's bind our text here, that the property that we have defined in our JS file, the title, and I'll give some class to this so that it looks a little bit bigger. SLDS text hyphen heading underscore large. So let's push our code. Currently, we haven't done anything related to Getter. I'm just pushing my code or component. So our component is deployed now. Let's go back to our org. Let's edit our page. Again, we'll go to app builder, drag our component, and our component name is Getter demo. Let's place it below the toggle demo. Okay, let's save it. Click back. Bind the text to my component, and the text is visible on my HTML as it is. So I have a scenario in which I want this text to be caps, all in capital letters. So let's go back to my VS code and create our first getter. So our first getter is to create a getter. You need to use a get keyword in front of a method. So I'll create a method name get title, and as I mentioned, every getter returns some value, expression, result, text, data, or something. So I'll return this dot title, and there is a property to convert our text to uppercase in JavaScript, that is called to uppercase method. So I'm creating a getter that get called every time and convert the title to uppercase using to uppercase method. So instead of binding this title to my HTML, let me bind get title. So whenever the component loads, it call the getter. Getter comes, getter dynamically convert the actual text to a uppercase. Your original data will remain same as it is, but on screen the visual data become uppercase. So let's deploy our component. and go back to our org. So currently this is in mixed letter case. I hope my component is deployed. Yes, it's deployed. Let's refresh our page. Now you see each and every letter is in uppercase. So this is getter. Let's go back to our VS Code and see another scenario that is one of the most commonly used scenario. Now I have a scenario in which I need to dynamically append a class. So I'll create one CSS file also here, getter demo.css. And so our scenario is we are going to create two buttons on and off, and based on the value of on and off we're going to update a class for a box. So let's copy the same structure and remove the title. So I have just created a div with some margin around it. I'll create two button. On click of this button I will call a handler click handler. So my first button name is on, and I'll use another button with same click handler as off. So it's like on and off button, and below this we'll create a box. So I'll give the same class to give some margin so that this button and box will not attach to each other. So to create a box, I'll create a blank div and give some CSS. I'll use that CSS later. Let me first add that CSS. So for button, I'm defining some custom CSS with border none, color white, padding, cursor, like on hover that hand icon should be there, button color, border, and the color of text to the button. Similarly, I'll add more classes. Don't worry, you can get this CSS from the code, and the code link I'll add in the video description. So I have created a green, red, and box class, and right now if I define my class box here, and with the box I have head, height, width, border, and let's deploy the component. No, it's we forgot to add a click handler. Let's go back to our controller, and on click handler we'll get some event. So every action will get some event, and we'll console dot log event dot current target dot inner. So from the event we'll go to the current target. It means in the event tell me which target I have clicked, and for that target give me the inner text. So if I click a button on, so within this button the current inner text is on. If I click off, so I'll get the off text. So This is what I'm consoling right now. Let me deploy this to org. So our component is deployed. Let's go to our org, refresh the page. So now we have two buttons, and on click of this button I want to append some class or color to this box. So in real time you have many scenario in which you have to dynamically append some class to some element, and we already attach some handler to both of the button, on click of which we are just printing the value of the inner text. So if I press on will print in our console. If I click off, our off value will print in our console. But right now this color is not coming to the box. Let's go back to our VS Code and see how Gator can help us to set the classes dynamically. So I create another property called selected button, and I'll create a getter called get box status. So initially none of the button is selected, that's why I created a blank property selected button, and without initializing any value to selected button. Let's create a getter called box status that will return the class based on our selected button value. Well, initialize actually this. Let's say by default our switch is off. So whenever our value is off, let's add a class box and green. Whenever it's on, whenever the value of selected button is on, the class should be box and green. Otherwise, it should be box and I can say red. So red means off, green means on, and it should be camel case always, box status. I'll change this class static value with the getter dynamic value. So whenever the page loads, it will call the getter. Getter will check whether the selected value is on or off. By default, it's off. Then it automatically append this class to our HTML. Let's deploy this component to our org. One more thing we missed, on click of button, we forgot to update the value of this selected button. So we'll assign this value to our selected button so that whenever I click on, selected value becomes on. Whenever I click off, the selected button become off. Let's say when deployed again, this is correct, this is correct. Let's deploy it. Deploy source to org. So now our component is deployed. Let's go back to our org, refresh the page. So now we said by default our Selected value is off, that's why the box color is red, because the red class is append over here. As I click on, our green class will append. If I click off, our red class, green, red, green, red. So this is another powerful use of Getter to assign a dynamic classes to an element. We can optimize our Getter. Instead of defining our box classes twice, there is a way we can write. Let's say I'll comment this line. Say return, use backticks, and we'll use string interpolation of JavaScript. I said return box class, and we'll execute one expression. This dot selected button equal to on. If it's on, we'll use ternary operator. Green, otherwise it's red. This is also one way, and yeah, if we deploy it, it still work for us. So here box class will always return. Along with that, based on this expression, if it's on, green class comes with the box, otherwise red class will comes with the box. So this is a proper way to write this expression using string interpolation. Now our component is deployed. Let's go back to our org, refresh the page. And you'll see still our component is working perfectly fine. So these are some use cases of Getter. To Let's move on to our next topic, and the next topic is conditional rendering on an event trigger. And in real time, we have many scenario on which we have to render template based on some trigger, like on some action or change action. We have to show or hide something on a screen. For this sort of or this kind of example, we need a getter. That's why we learned getter before this example. Let's see how conditional rendering on an event trigger works. Let's go back to our VS Code, and we'll create another component. I'll give this name template on change demo. Enter. Let's copy this and close our all files. So our command is still running for component creation. Now our component is created successfully. Let's go to the meta file. Let's expose this component to all the pages as well as expose true. Let's go to our JS file. So in this example, we're going to create an input box, and based on your text you're typing in your input box, we're going to hide and show some HTML template on the screen. So within this, I'll define a property called input text, initialize with null value, and let's go to our HTML. I'll create some template card with title conditional entering based on an even trigger, and I will give some icon name template card. This is lightning card. Okay, so our card is ready. Within this, we'll define quickly some margin plus SLDS margin around medium size. So my margin is ready. So let's create an input box within this div. We'll use the lightning input and with type text name title. Apart from that, we can give a label, enter your name, enter your name, label is fine, then we'll define a handler up, on key up, call a change handler, and apart from that, we'll use a value bind with a property that we define here in our JS file, that is input text. And let's close this tag lightning input. So we have created an input box with type text, name, title, label, enter your name, and we have attached a event handler on key press. So whenever you type or you press any key, this method will get called, and we have bind the value, the property input text. Let's create this handler. I'll go to my JS. We'll create this method, and this on each keystroke will update our property input text with the value that is typed. Target dot value, this is the way by which we can pick up the value what you have typed in your input box. So now our input box is ready, but we have a condition. Whenever user types, I'll go to my HTML. So I have a condition: whenever my user types something, or not something exact, Salesforce true, then this text should be visible. Mm, so the text is before the text. Okay, the text is inside h3. I'll use h3 tag. Hello Salesforce truth. So this text should be visible whenever the user types Salesforce truth, or I'll say whenever the user type troops. So for that, we'll use our directive if true and bind to something. We'll use Gator here to dynamically calculate the value or expression. So whenever the user types something here, this text should only visible whenever the user types troops in the text box. So I'll create a getter now, check text, and I'll create a getter, get keyword, method name, function and it always returns. So I'll check whenever this dot input text, whenever the user types something, it automatically updates the input text. So whenever the input text value is equal to truths, then only show this text, because whenever this getter runs, it compares the value and this expression returns true or false. So whenever this getter returns true, our text will be visible on the screen. If it returns false, this text will be hidden. Let's push our code, deploy source to org. So this is another way of hiding and showing based on some dynamic condition using getters, because we can't use that expression directly in our. So if I copy paste this expression over here, it will not work. You can't execute any expression with any operator like triple equal to dot operator, numeric operator in the templates. That's why we have used a getter over here. So our component is deployed. Let's go to our org. Let's edit the page again quickly. Let's drag our component. Our component is template on change demo. I will place this below the getter demo. Save this, back to the page. So now our component is ready. Conditional rendering based on an event trigger. So this is a text box. So whenever I type something, hello, nothing is happening. It's just typing. But whenever I type troops, it immediately show the element with the text. That was our h3. As I enter another tag or another key, it will hide it. As I tap exact key, exact word troops, it show our template. So h3 tag is visible. So this is conditional rendering based on an event trigger, and you can compare with anything dynamically over here. So yeah, let's see what else is remaining. I guess we have covered our all topics. We know now what is directive. We have seen how if true, if false work, how we can toggle the template. We have seen a pretty good example of getters in Lightning Web Component, and just now we covered conditional rendering on an event trigger. So that's it for today's guys. And if you have any doubt, you can ask me in the comment, and all the links, all the codes, or whatever I have used in this video, I'll add in the description of the video. Please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for your time. Have a good day.